Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind, episode 90.
So I just basically changed my whole philosophy about food, and I now focus on making every single ingredient count.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Tammie Duggar. Tammie has a special inner mission to heal, nurture, and nourish other people. One expression of this is her passion for nutrition. She teaches that the best foods to eat are whole, real foods. She's written several cookbooks. Each book is designed to help people connect with real food, fall in love with the process of meal preparation, and to recapture something special that our culture has lost. Tammie has had a personal journey with food as she has discovered ways to heal herself and increase vitality. As a certified culinary nutrition expert and with years of in-the-trenches training in her own kitchen, her kitchen is her playground where she loves to discover and experiment with new foods and meal options. She's a natural teacher and has a gift for making people feel good while they learn by making complex things seem simple and practical. She offers hands-on cooking classes and personal mentoring that helps build confidence and excitement about eating real whole foods. Welcome, Tammie.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be with you today.
I am super excited to have you on. I was telling Tammie before we started to record that food and diet and exercise and all that is definitely one of my loves. And so I'm not a really great cook, but I do love eating healthy and taking care of myself. So,
yes, that's awesome. Very good.
So do you want to briefly tell us about yourself?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I'm a mother. I have 4 children, and I've been homeschooling them throughout their lives. And now my children are 21, 18, 12, and 11. And I just found that as they were growing up, my passions would kind of revolve around whatever stage in life that we were in. So when my children were really little, my husband and I taught natural childbirth classes together. Anything I'm passionate about, I usually just love to teach other people about.
Well, and that's the best way to learn, right?
Oh, yeah, that is the best way. Taught natural childbirth classes, and then as my children got older, I taught swimming lessons, I taught scrapbooking classes, and so it was kind of just like whatever I was passionate about, I just decided I'm going to teach other people about this because that's how you keep your passion going if you have an audience to teach. But then about 6 years ago, I kind of had a health crisis. I just started noticing that I was tired all the time. I mean, this was like debilitating fatigue. I seemed to need a nap every day. I didn't have the energy I needed to really take care of my family the way that I wanted to. And I'm a really kind of a get up and go kind of person. And the fatigue was just really killing any passion that I had for life.
Yeah, you got to be healthy to be able to just enjoy life. So.
Yes, it's true. If you don't have energy, then you don't enjoy anything. After the fatigue kind of went on for a little while, then I started having really severe digestive problems. Oh, no. And thank goodness my husband, he is a chiropractor, and he focuses his practice on functional medicine. So he started searching for answers to all these different health concerns that I was having. And over the course of, several lab tests and other things we were trying, we discovered that I had a gluten sensitivity. So within a week of eliminating gluten from my diet, my energy started to pick up. I had energy throughout the day again. Other people that have experienced this, where they have to eliminate gluten from their diet, it's a really tough thing to do. And 6 years ago, it was a little bit harder to do. Today, there's more gluten-free products available, and people kind of have a better understanding of people with gluten sensitivities. So I just started healing myself through the food choices I was making. And that's kind of how that all started taking place.
Well, that's interesting. I've got kind of a gluten sensitivity too, so I can totally relate with you. Maybe not to that extreme. That's super frustrating when your body is just not working like it should. So how did this experience affect your paradigm about food and the direction you needed to go?
Yeah, well, first of all, I was really frustrated because all my life I had learned, wheat is the staff of life and wheat is good for our bodies. And I just had an eternal conflict that if wheat's good for me, why is it not good for me? So, and it was hard because we have to eat every day, multiple times a day. It's just something that never goes away. But I started recognizing that I needed to focus on just really how my food was affecting me. And I learned my eyes were kind of open to all the different foods that are available on this planet for us. Our Creator has created so many different things for us to eat. The possibilities really are endless. And so during the past 6 years, I've just really I've done a lot of research on food and nutrition. I've learned how to cook different types of foods in different ways. And I just learned that the quality of the food that I put into my body really has an effect on my overall health. Not only how I feel in my body, but also how I feel in my mind and my brain, and I have more focus and more clarity of thought.
Yeah, because I've actually heard that sometimes that gluten can cause this brain fog to occur. Yeah, is that right?
Yes. I mean, there's all sorts of symptoms related to gluten sensitivity. Brain fog is one of them. And so people don't necessarily think, it has something to do with what I'm eating. But yeah, I was experiencing brain fog quite often. And so I just basically changed my whole philosophy about food, and I now focus on making every single ingredient count, whether I'm putting, whole ingredients into my body as food or I'm making a recipe. I just try to make every ingredient count. I don't want anything that's not going to do my body good in me.
So this question's kind of off the cuff. You talked about making sure that we're eating real whole foods. Maybe some people really don't understand what that means. Do you want to kind of explain that?
Yes. So first I want to just maybe say, before I answer that all the way, a lot of times people ask me, so are you a vegetarian? I don't know why, but that's usually the first question out of people's mouths because I have a different sort of diet than the average person. But I just tell them no, and my answer is I'm a Tammie-atarian. Meaning that I have discovered that eating a certain way is best for me and my body, and everybody else needs to recognize that for themselves as well. And I found when we eat whole, real foods, then we can figure out what types of foods are better for us, what we feel better after we eat. So whole, real foods, in my definition, would be something that is close to nature as possible, meaning that I could go outside and I could find it in nature if I needed to hunt it or fish for it or pick it or harvest it or milk it. Those are whole, real foods. I could find them in nature. I wouldn't need to go to a specialty grocery store or anything like that to find them.
When we're talking about gluten and wheat in particular, how do you think, because I know a lot of people that make their own bread or whatever, but what's the difference between a flour that you might grind yourself and one that you buy in just a traditional grocery store? I guess I don't understand sometimes what that gluten, is that something that they add in, or is that something, has it been changed somehow, or what's the...
Yeah, so gluten is a protein that is found in wheat and barley and rye. So it's just already in those grains. Gluten is kind of the glue, the sticky substance kind of in that grain that holds everything together. So when you make bread, it makes everything stick together and make that nice moist loaf of bread. So I can't make a loaf of bread with using only, say, rice flour because rice doesn't have gluten, therefore it has nothing to stick together. So it just kind of falls apart. But I believe that our grains and just the way that our agriculture is nowadays, that they have been changed some way, their form, they've actually modified the wheat grain to be more glutinous. More glutinous grain makes a more fluffy and moist loaf of bread, and I think that's what people like and they enjoy. So grains have been changed for that very reason. So even if you grind it at home yourself or just buy the already ground flour at the grocery store, wherever the source of that grain is coming from, I think that could have an effect on how much gluten is in it.
Yeah, that is interesting. Like I said, I'm not all that familiar with gluten. I just know that I don't do well with it. So it causes like my stomach to cramp and really hurt. It's just not very much fun. So
people ask me too if I have celiac disease, which is really severe. Gluten, you can't have it at all because it actually destroys the villi in your intestines. But I've had blood tests and biopsies and all sorts of lab work done to find out if I have an actual gluten allergy or celiac disease. But everything comes back negative, that I should be able to eat gluten. But what I've found that I just have to listen to my body, and my body is not liking it right now. So I'm choosing not to eat it and be respectful of my body right now.
Yeah, I know I feel way different. There's a pizza place I know that I don't know if they have like huge amounts of gluten, but every time my husband takes me there, it takes me like 3 days to feel, come out of the fog, not feel just locked down, not have my stomach hurt. So it's just incredible how much time it takes. So how have you used that experience to teach others kind of the knowledge that you have?
Okay, so I think throughout our lives, whatever experience we have, whatever challenges we go through, whatever we have to learn and overcome, we can then use it after we've learned our lessons. We can use that so that we can guide and help others that may also be having similar circumstances or experiences that we had. In the past, like I said, my husband is a functional medicine practitioner, and in the past with his patients that he would work with, as he was helping them through certain challenges, and he generally would have to give them suggestions to change some lifestyle habits that they have. And generally, always one of those lifestyle changes that he would suggest is some dietary changes. And he used to always say, "Hey, I need you to stop eating gluten," and send them on their way, and they would just have to figure it out themselves. But thankfully, since I went through this experience myself, now he is able to refer them to me. He calls me the implementer, so I can then help them make the changes and offer suggestions that I found work for me so that that transition is not so overwhelming or difficult for them, and so their healing process can be a lot quicker.
Yeah, so I wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah.
So I agree with that.
And it can be hard, so it's good to have somebody that's been through it.
Yeah.
Before we go on, let us take a minute and hear about our sponsors.
Changing a paradigm takes some study, but like me, you are probably super busy. That's why we've teamed up with Audible. Go to our website, theluminousmind.net, get a free month of Audible with 2 audiobooks, thousands of titles in exchange for only books that you absolutely love. You too can be learning on the go to keep that fire burning.
Welcome back to The Luminous Mind with Tammy Duggar on better health and nutrition.
So what services do you offer then?
So when I first kind of figured out that I needed to avoid gluten, I realized that so many of our family's favorite recipes needed to be altered or changed to make them more nourishing, but to also cut out the gluten. So I started adapting my recipes, and I kind of live by the philosophy, if it doesn't taste good, I'm not going to feed it to my family, because sometimes people think that yeah, exactly. Sometimes people think that because we eat a healthy diet that our food tastes gross. but as I started adapting my recipes, I would try things out on my friends, and they sort of encouraged me to publish my recipes. And so I did that. I self-published a cookbook, and I sold over 450 books.
Wow.
And I did that, and it was so, number one, it was so empowering for me to recognize that I had this gift and this talent, but also it was really good for me to recognize that I could now help others that may be on a similar health journey. And so sometimes when I would meet people who had purchased my book, and they would generally always say, "Oh, I love your cookbook." And so I would ask them a question. I would say, "Well, what's your favorite recipe?" Because I just, I wanted to know. And many times, it was so interesting, many times people would say, really kind of sheepishly, they would, "Well, I really haven't made anything yet, but I want to, but I'm just a little overwhelmed by the whole thing." And I thought to myself, that is crazy. My recipes aren't difficult. My philosophy is make things simple and easy. And so I decided I need to fix something. If people are afraid to try something new, I need to do something. So I started offering cooking classes, and I would pick a topic, principle of nutrition, and I would I would teach a class on healthy fats, and I would teach them why fat is important to have in your diet, what types of fats are healthy for you, what types of fats you should avoid. And after we kind of learned why fat was important, then we would make different recipes that had different types of fats in them, so that they could then have the knowledge and the skill to go home and implement those things in their lives.
Yeah, that is one thing I think, talking about paradigm and how it changes, I think as Americans, our ideas of a healthy diet are kind of skewed, like you said,
Yes.
like things that are wheat, to stay away from meat, anything with fat in it is bad, salt is bad. I mean, all those things. What is your philosophy with that? I mean, you talked about healthy fats. What about eating meats and stuff like that, too?
Yeah, I feel like meat is beneficial for people, but I like to make sure that people recognize that they need to look for the best possible sources of meat. Free-range, grass-fed beef and free-range chicken or turkey and pork, just so that we're not eating food that has been pumped full of antibiotics or hormones, because those things affect us. They have a great impact on our own hormone systems and our health. So if somebody, like I said earlier also, I'm a Tammie-itarian. I eat what is best for me. In my family, I have one child that she's really not a fan of meat. And so her other siblings always say, "Are you a vegetarian?" And I try to tell them, no, she's not, because every now and then we'll have meat or fish or, whatever the meat is for that night, and she will, snarf it down.
Yeah, so it might just be what her body, she just may need less of it, right?
Yeah, so I just tell them we just are all going to listen to our bodies, and if she doesn't feel like having meat tonight, she doesn't need to. She's going to eat whatever else we have to provide, and then when she feels like eating meat, she's going to.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. So what successes have you seen from some of these cooking classes that you've put on? Are people actually using your books now then?
Yes, people are actually using the book, which is good. I don't want to make a book that nobody ever opens. So I've had a lot of people take my classes. I've been teaching them for over 4 years now, usually a different topic every month. But I've even had people that have come to my classes that tell me later on, before this class, I never cooked before. I was just stunned at that. That just blew my mind. But they just said they just hadn't cooked because they never learned how. They maybe thought it would take too much time, or they even thought it would be more expensive to make your own food than to go out for food or, buy frozen. I know. There's some skewed brain thought right there. But usually when they come to my classes, they leave with, number one, knowledge on why nutrition is important. And then number two, they leave with confidence because they've either seen me demonstrate a recipe from beginning to end, or they've actually helped to hands-on prepare that recipe during the class, and so they get confident. But my favorite success story, I had a teenage girl that actually begged her mom for several months to take my classes because she wanted her family to eat more healthy. And so she just kept bugging her mom until her mom finally decided to take the classes. And I just thought, there are little kids and teenagers out there that want a change in how their moms are preparing their food, but, they might not recognize that that's the change they need in their life. But sometimes I think people are afraid to make changes because their family might revolt. But I think, I think really that teenagers and young kids, they're really willing and accepting of new dietary changes because they will feel the benefit as well. They will feel better.
Yeah. Well, and we have such a problem with like childhood obesity and that sluggish feeling too, where kids are really struggling to have the energy to just be kids like it used to be. So
right. Energy, and then also their brains. They're having a hard time learning and thinking, and it's all about the food we put in our body.
Well, and I love too, like in your bio, it talked about how you want people to fall in love with the process of meal preparation and recapture, something that's been lost in our culture. What is that component, do you think?
I think that component is just the family that is in the kitchen together, and it might take an hour to prepare a meal. I know that sounds like overwhelming, but we're all in there together, and somebody's chopping the vegetables and somebody's mixing up the sauce or the salad dressing, and we're just all working together from beginning, starting the meal preparation, to then enjoying it together and then cleaning up afterwards. Just the other day, my son was making dinner with me, and it was just sweet and sour chicken. And he commented that he notices when he helps me make it, he's more willing to eat the vegetables that are in the meal than before when he wasn't helping prepare it. He just wanted the chicken and the sauce and the rice.
Oh, that's an interesting comment.
He said, now that I've done all the chopping, I really want to eat it more because I just think they have an ownership there. And he chopped all the vegetables. He wants to taste them now. He had all that work involved and he invested some time. So I think it's really beneficial to be in the kitchen together. It just is a great bonding time when you can talk about things and just be together.
Yeah, well, and you talk about some of the people that, have purchased your book but really don't know how to apply that knowledge. That really is, like your bio said, that is a missing component, that we don't know how to take care of ourselves anymore, those simple, basic life skills. And helping your children prepare stuff in the kitchen is only going to help them in their future. So, and then I like too, I guess what I'm getting out of it is that it strengthens our families, that it connects us and it gives us a chance to talk to our kids about things that are really important versus, rushing to a restaurant. You just can't have deep conversations with people in a restaurant.
Right.
So
and I found that it's a less confrontational place to have deep conversations because you can be chopping things with a knife and have a serious conversation and really a good connection with your child that's better than just, even trying to say, hey, let's sit down and talk. Because not a lot of teenagers are going to be like, all right, Mom, let's talk.
Exactly.
But you have them kind of trapped in the kitchen, and then you can talk about stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like we said, it definitely strengthens our families and makes us a little closer. So, and it's even a little less pointed than when you're eating the meal together, when you're like, so what did you do today?
Right. So. Because you can already get that out of the way before you even put the first bite in your mouth.
Exactly. So great. So what are some long-term goals that you have?
Well, last year I actually launched a new website, and now I have a lot of my recipes just free on the website so people can, I try to have a picture of every recipe because in my cookbook that I published, there weren't any pictures, which is another downfall because people want to see what they're going to create.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, did I screw up? I don't know.
Yes.
What's it supposed to look
and
like?
I also, yeah, exactly. What's it supposed to be when it turns out? And I also include some kitchen tips and maybe some tricks on doing things easier, more efficiently. I try to have new blog posts on there either weekly or monthly, and usually it's on some sort of nutrition topic or lifestyle habit topic. I still am teaching classes in my home, but I'm getting prepared to have these classes recorded so that then I can have them available also on my website, because not everyone can come to my house and take the class. So I really want to be able to share this with a wider audience. And I'm also mentoring people one-on-one. I help people like my husband's patients, lifestyle changes, but I'm also trying to broaden my influence and help other people that might just need some help making these lifestyle changes, like what's a good first step, or, what things should I have in my pantry, those kind of things I help people do.
Yeah, that's what I struggle with. I mean, you go to the store, you try to pick out items that you think are healthy, but, you don't really know. I just don't know ingredients very well to know.
Yeah.
So, and plus a lot of stuff that we have that it doesn't come from somewhere in nature. I mean, that's what you're talking about, those processed foods. We need to avoid those anyway, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Too many preservatives and all of that.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. So if you could leave a legacy, what would it be?
Well, I think we've kind of already talked about it, but I just want people to connect with food again. It seems to me that they've lost their enjoyment for eating. It's just like something we got to do. We shove the food down and we're on our way again.
Yeah, that high-paced life is really affecting us.
And I think we need to pause and be really mindful when we're eating and just be grateful for the food and be grateful for what it's going to do for our bodies, and just kind of really connect with that again. And that includes the preparation of it. And if we can involve our family in that time, we're, building relationships with each other. And I just envision in my mind me as a cute little old grandma, and my kids are over with their my grandkids, and we're just in the kitchen together preparing a meal, and then we're enjoying it. That's my vision for the future. It's kind of where it's in the kitchen.
Yeah. Well, and as a grandma, the yummy smells that come from your kitchen, and then most our conversations, like you said, center around our kitchens and then the dining table too. So
yeah,
don't lose that.
So I don't want us to lose that, because I think we're, our society's kind of going down that track where the kitchen table is kind of just the place where we make piles of things instead of enjoy food.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That seems like that's where a lot of things are going. So before we say goodbye, do you have some final parting words of advice for our listeners? And then please give us your contact information.
Okay, I would love to share that. So I know that sometimes when people want to make dietary changes, they just get really overwhelmed because maybe they never learned how to cook or they don't know where to start. I just have 3 things that I recommend to people. And the first thing is, they're actually 3 questions. So if you ask yourself these questions, it'll start being easier to make dietary changes that will affect your health for the positive. And the first question is, would my great-great-grandmother recognize it as food? So there's some foods out there that people are eating that our great-great-grandmothers wouldn't know what is that blue stuff that you're squeezing out of a tube, What's a yogurt, great-grandma? But she wouldn't recognize that as food. So that's kind of the first criteria that I have. And the second question is, if I'm buying a pre-made food item, does it have 5 ingredients or less? And kind of a follow-up question with that same one is, do I recognize the ingredients? Can I pronounce them? Or could I spell them if I needed to? So usually a food that has 5 ingredients or less, you can usually pronounce all those words. So that's another criteria that I offer to people. And then the last question would be, I mentioned earlier, is it as close to nature as possible? So could I go outside if I needed to, and could I hunt it, fish it, pick it, or milk it? Because then that would tell me that it's close to nature if I could do those things.
Those are great questions. I was typing them out because I definitely want to add those in there. The 5 ingredients, and then being able to recognize what they are. That is almost impossible anymore. It seems
yes.
like.
Sometimes it is, yep.
That's great. So what's your contact information then?
Okay, so on my website, you can go to my website, and then if you needed to contact me personally, you could do it from there. But my website is TammieDuggar.com, and that's TammieDuggar.com.
That's pretty simple. Great.
Simple to remember.
Yeah. Well, and it's been a fun conversation to talk about how we can change and make better choices with food. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Tammie Duggar, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list and consider joining our program by going to the scheduling tab to become a fire starter today. Help support the podcast by making all your Amazon purchases through the free Amazon widget on our website. Also, sign up to receive 2 free audiobooks from Audible at theluminousmind.net. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Google+. Get our audio content on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider telling your friends about us. Leave us a review. Tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.